Hello fellow woodworkers, and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop and the second video in this series on my new workbench. This week we're going to be adding the internal shelves for storage and the top. Roll the intro. So, having had a thought, the first thing I did before I started the rest of the build was remove this strut. The reason that I did that was I wanted to put my T-stacks in, as you can see there, and obviously having the strut there would obstruct it, but without it I knew that I was able to fit more of them in. So I then began on the long process of measuring. There was a lot of measuring in this project. I just cannot tell you how much, but when I got the measurements how I wanted, I then looked for a piece of wood that would fit. And again, those of you that know the channel, these are offcuts that I buy from B&Q, and these are what the worktops come sort of protected by. They're great offcuts of wood, really thick MDF, but much more harder to drill through. They're much more compact, if you know what I mean. So having marked it all out, I got the right amount of gap either side, and this was the sort of standing up one. And here I'm using my little Parkside sort of mini, sort of a bit like a mini miter saw, really, a bit like a sort of sliding saw. It's only a tiny little one, and this was probably the limit of what it could cut. I have mentioned this in a previous video, but it was actually really good, and it was good at cutting out the angles. So I had the base put in to one side, and I then moved on to the ridges, which I'm pointing out to you then, two sort of L shapes. This was a really tricky cut to make, even more tricky on the little Ferrex sort of worktop table saw that I had borrowed, which I had a long time ago, and gave it to someone else and sort of got it back, and it was brilliant for this little job. Really, really good, very powerful. It's not got a great blade on it. It's about 20 teeth, I think, the blade, but it cut through here really, really well. The only disadvantage is it does take quite a long time to get the fence level. The fence on it's not great, but plenty of time to put it all together. And then to fix it, I drilled some angled holes, just because I didn't want anything to sort of catch the wood on its way through. When I did that, I just offered them up, I glued them, and I screwed them into place. Some unusual camera angles. There's quite a few unusual camera angles in this video, but I wanted to make sure that the heads of the screws weren't sitting proud, so that the table, when it was put in, would get bashed in. This is my new glue dauber. I'll talk about that in a future video. Absolutely brilliant. Cannot recommend it enough. There's another one of those crazy angles. Just so you can see basically how it's done. This is actually upside down, but I clamped it, glued it, clamped it. When it was secure with the clamps, then just drove the screws in, and obviously the clamps and the glue held it in place. I did actually leave this to go off overnight because I wanted that glue as really tight as I could get it. So I left it to go off overnight, and it stuck a treat. So fellow woodworkers, I've got to the point where I'm ready to put the top on my workbench. I'm not actually going to put it on yet because I want to wait until I've done the shelves, but I've gone for 12mm hard plywood, and there's a few reasons for that. Obviously on a project like this you would tend to go for thicker plywood, 18mm, or even, you know, even 22. You might even go for MDF, but I wanted to go for the 12mm plywood because I know this top is going to need changing probably 2 or 3 times in its life, maybe even more. So I didn't want to go for an expensive plywood that would cost a lot and still need to be replaced in the same way that the thinner plywood was. So I've gone to B&Q. I bought a full-size sheet of plywood, 12mm hard ply, and they cut it up for me. So I've got 2 pieces that are cut, and things I haven't really explained is how I'm going to extend the table. So the plan is to come up with a system where I can hook on the side another effectively extension to the table. So I've got an idea on how I want to do that, and that's what this rail section at the bottom is for. So the plan is to have a sort of second or an extension top, and it will sit inside that groove section when it's not being used. So when I want to use it, I can just slide it out and put it on the top. So I've done all the measurements, I've been to B&Q and I've cut the wood, and now is the time to find out whether my marking is accurate. Now I've left the wood original length because I wanted a factory edge to cut from. So when I put the top on and when I put this sort of auxiliary top on, they won't fit exactly in here. There is going to be an overhang, but I know that because obviously I've allowed for the fact that this is cut down from the original sheet. So let's see if what I've done is right and if it works. First of all, I'll put the plank in the bottom and just see if that works. Only time will tell if that's the right decision, but I offered up my two pieces. As I just said, I know there's an overhang, but I wanted to keep the factory edge because both of these have got one factory edge on them. And the piece underneath, I've still not quite worked out how I'm going to use that yet, but I know I will. I then unpacked my Not Bloom undermount drawer slides. I'll put a link in the description to these. I've installed everything with Bloom. This is the first time I've used non-Bloom table slides, and they are drawer slides, and they are absolutely brilliant. In my mind, they're as good as the Bloom ones, and they are significantly cheaper. The next thing that I wanted to do is just put an extra little brace in, and this is more sort of peace of mind than anything else. It doesn't need to be there, but putting the drawers in, I just wanted to have it. I then put some two up struts in for the drawer slides to fix to. Again, just very simple pocket holes, nothing too complicated. And as you can see, I mounted the drawer slides either side. I did actually have to pack this out at the front. You don't see it in the video, I did it off camera. I did pack it out in the front because on the right hand side that wood was slightly off, so I've got a tiny little shim in there, but it's only small. Then cut out a piece of MDF the size I wanted to enable me to install the upper rails. This I've learned from experience. I clamped them in this time before I drilled them in and pre-drilled them and screwed them. I haven't done that previously and it's a nightmare. Just to show you, it was all completely level. That's lying on the two drawer slides. I then began using the offcuts to make the actual drawers. Again, this is just 12mm plywood that was left from the cut on the top. Very basic construction. There are loads and loads of videos on how to make these drawers. Bourbon moss is a brilliant one if you're interested, but there's loads. Restoration Couple have got a good one as well. So I just literally basically hooked them all together. I have to say, again, the table saw, the little mini Work Zone table saw, did a really good job of putting the groove in for the base of the drawer. And I'm just using my brad nailer here, just glue and brad nails, that's all it is, nothing too complicated and nothing more complicated than it certainly needs to be. And although I don't show it to you, I did exactly the same process for both drawers. You can see too much of a man making drawers, can't you? So I just hooked it all up, glued it all up, and I left it overnight. I just wanted to be 100% sure that the glue had time to go off. And this was actually, you can see, this was actually quite a sunny day. So the glue did dry quite quickly, but I did leave them overnight, both of the drawers, just to make sure. And you can just see there the grooves that are cut in for the drawer slide. So I offered it up, I tapped it with a hammer. I always do that just to get the little pin in the back of the drawer slides thoroughly in. I probably should use a wider drill bit, but as you can see, soft close mechanism works perfectly. So as I said, I just repeated that with exactly the same procedure with another drawer. And then I use this little sort of drawer template guide thing, which I got from Temu, which I featured in my recent Temu haul video. This was the first time I used it. Took a little bit of setting up, as you can see, but you can just see me there putting the handle in, getting it fixed to exactly the right place. Then I simply offered it up. I actually drilled straight in. I know people don't, they sometimes leave marks, but I just drilled straight through it. The size drill bit would go through the hole easily. I did the same on the bottom drawer, and then I got another piece of that cut off, and this was for the sort of internal dividers and base shelves that you can see, the sort of bits that are missing. Cut it to the right size, fitted a treat, absolute treat. and then I just literally hooked it in with one screw either side. I didn't want to sort of go too mad. I just wanted something that would keep it in place. So just hooked it in with one either side. I did the same with this. Again, I used my little Parkside tool that you saw earlier to cut the boards, and just finished it off with my Japanese pull saw. This one I actually pre-drilled and screwed it down, this one. I did use brad nails on it as well, but because this was going to have a little bit more weight on it, I wanted to make sure it's properly secured. So pre-drilled all the holes, screwed it down. As you can see, it's a really nice fit. And then I just went round with my brad nailer afterwards, just making sure, because what I didn't want is things sort of getting there and lifting it up. And again, it just helps the rigidity. I then noticed that a couple of corners where the sort of inner bit or the outer bit wasn't quite level. So again, I just got some shim off cuts and just leveled it up, and then just finished it off with the brad nailer, which didn't sink the nails all the way. I just had to tap them in, but no problem at all. And when I got all of those nice and level, it was time to move on to the next stage, which was putting in the other side drawer. So this is now sort of all the bottom boards of the workbench. So again, I just tacked this one in with the brad nailer, get it nice and tight, and it was a really good fit, as you can see. Then it was time to fix the top, so I just clamped a piece of wood one side to make sure I had like a starting point, a corner where it was exactly right. When I hooked that up, I then marked it out underneath with a pencil line, and then I just went at it with my very, very good plunge saw, which I'm in love with, and I mention it every video, but really good. The only thing I didn't do there was put the brake on the table, which I should have done to stop it moving. But I still got a really good cut. But just to make sure, when this piece came off, I just got my tape measure out and measured it, and it was exactly the same all the way along, which I was very pleased about. Just one other shim, I forgot to put this shim on when it was outside. So again, I just literally used gravity and the weight of the table really to keep the shim in place. I didn't like fix it down in any other way. It didn't need it. I just clamped it up when I'd stuck it down, and that seemed to work a treat. Next thing was the most difficult job. Sometimes it would be nice to have somebody else with you, because this was an absolute ball ache trying to do this. It took quite a long time actually to get all of these little brackets in. I just used very small screws. I think I put 8 of them in the end in total. Fixed them all in, just small screws into the wood, up into the bottom. When that was done, the next thing to do was to put a cover on the top. I've just gone for Parkside lacquer here. Really, really simple, really straightforward. It's a really nice product. I've used it a few times, cheap as chips, but actually a really good finish. So I just covered it in that. Then I put in the bottom drawer and we were done. So fellow woodworkers, the workbench is finished. What a mammoth project. If you are still watching, thank you so much for watching all the way through. I know they were 2 very, very long videos, but I have to say I am very impressed with the workbench now it's actually finished. I set myself a criteria of having a workbench that was deeper, not quite as long, and much more functional, and I've definitely achieved that. As you can see, you have just seen in the video, I've lacquered the top. I've done that deliberately. As I've said, I know this top is going to need replacing, but I didn't want to put the sort of workbenchy worktop on the top because it would have made it too heavy, and actually the unit is surprisingly light, and the things I'm going to put in it won't sort of weigh it down too much. So the 2 drawers at the front, as you can see, both of them working. They've got not the Bloom soft close. I'll put a link in the description, a sort of cheaper version of the Bloom, but having installed Bloom on everything else, they are identical. So I'll put a link in the description to those. And I've got a storage space here, which I'm not quite sure what will go there yet, but it is reinforced enough that I could probably put something like my air compressor or my sander, something like that. Rotate around. Now there is a reason that I have left the sides open like that. I'm not going to reveal the reason now. Just keep your eye out for some upcoming videos on the garage workshop. But at the moment, that's staying as it is. Then all the way round to the other side, where I've got my storage unit designed for my DeWalt T-stacks, which will go in there. I have got a space above, and at the moment I'm toying with the idea of putting a shelf in, but to be honest with you, I'm not going to do it at the moment. I'm very pleased with how it's turned out. It's exactly as I imagined it being. I'll put a little picture of the drawing that I did in SketchUp before. It looks very good. In terms of the skills and the build, as you've seen all the way through, quite a lot of techniques. I've got to use quite a few tools as well, considering I blew up my Evolution table saw. So I've got to use the different tools that I don't normally use in the garage workshop, so that's been a massive bonus. But overall, just really, really pleased. The whole thing is level inside the workshop. The casters are really good, very strong, and as you can see, it moves really, really well. So leave in a comment if you have an opinion on what you think, whether you think the top was a mistake or not, entirely up to you. But please make sure you leave a comment and also like. If this is your first time at the garage workshop, thank you so much for watching the video. Please can I ask you to subscribe, like and comment. If you're a regular viewer, thank you again. I know there were 2 longer videos, but hopefully you've got something out of them. And again, don't forget to like and comment, and don't forget in the comments, give me your opinion. Do you think it's a winner or not? I'll catch you on next week's edition of the Garage Workshop. Take care, fellow woodworkers.